And then we're good. There we go. We're
Okay.
about to go live. Hello, Facebook. Hi. So great to see you guys again. We're doing 4 interviews today. And because, like, I don't like to say no to people. And welcome to Comic Strip, where I get to interview people who are making it in the business, like our guests today. Today, in the other square, we have Amanda Averell. Hi, welcome. Can you hear?
Hi. Thank you for having me, Linda.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk shop.
Yes, I'll do your intro here. Um, Amanda is a comedian, writer, and producer, and also co owner of Burning Bridges Comedy Club in Pittsburgh. She's from Pittsburgh, and your club is in Pittsburgh, correct?
Correct. Yes. Hmm.
Wonderful. So she's an actor, educator, coach, improviser, and I counted 13 comedy festivals as of the last, probably as of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, 13 as of the pandemic. Well, I did one of them during it because it was a virtual one. They switched to virtual. And yeah, the other ones got canceled last year, but I do have one coming up for this year already. So that's great.
What's the one that you have coming up? Where will you be performing?
I will be at the Rubber City Comedy Festival, which is in Akron, Ohio. It's their first year. Last year was supposed to be their first year. So this year's their first year. And I will be performing, um, maybe doing some other stuff too, not too sure yet. But that should be happening from May 5th through 8th at Akron, Ohio. And I believe a lot of the shows are going to be happening at the Funny Stop over there, which is one of their comedy clubs.
Wonderful. Well, my gosh, aren't you something? Oh my gosh, you look like you're about 1/5 my age. I'm turning 70, so you must have started when you.
I'm I'm 36. So I not 1/5 your age, about half, about half. Uh and I started doing comedy when I turned 29, so not that many years ago, to be honest. Loved it forever. Did not start until I was nearly 30. So
Wow, I started when I was 63. So yeah, so
you
did
can do it at any age.
yeah, you
It's
can.
fantastic. It's one of the best parts about comedy.
Yeah. So talk to me about growing up. You grew up in Pittsburgh.
Yep, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I yeah, born and raised here. Lived in Florida for a year when I was younger, but no real damage was done. I'm not a Florida person. Love the state of Florida. Not that typical quote unquote Florida man, so that's good. I made it out unscathed. But yeah, love my city. Think it's beautiful, fantastic. Had a burgeoning scene before the pandemic and looks to be like it's going to have one after as well. There's a lot of good stuff hopefully coming down the pike as far as comedy is concerned. Things are starting to ramp back up again, which is great.
Nice. Well, talk to me about your comedy club.
So Burning Bridges Comedy Club, right, well, it has had a storied 2020, let me tell you. We were supposed to have our fifth annual Burning Bridges Comedy Festival last year, but that got canceled due to the pandemic 6 days before it was supposed to happen. And we have not yet been able to reopen. due to a lot of the state mandates and things like that. And our club, that both myself and Derek Minto, another local comedian, the club that we co-own, operated out of a bar called Ham Bones, which is a longtime establishment in the city. And unfortunately, the owner of that bar, our dear friend, passed away in the end of September. So right now, it's still a little bit in flux. We still have the club. It's our club. We own our club, and we're just waiting and seeing. And we also kind of have to wait and see too, once a couple COVID things clear up, when we can start doing shows out of our club again.
My goodness. You know, a lot of what's going on in Vegas has restarted. I'm sure you've heard. And
Yeah, I have. I've done comedy. I was out in Vegas in 2017. I was supposed to go out there this past year too, but I was out there in 2017, and friends with a lot of comics out there. I see that it's starting to ramp up a little bit out there too.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, do you have any plans in your head to come out here when it gets a little clearer?
Um, I don't have any plans to go out that far west as of yet for this year. Um, Probably not until closer to fall. Uh, I'm working on creating a spring slash summer tour right now. And hopefully, I'm imagining most of that will be more East Coast or Midwest, and then hopefully next year I can head a little bit more West Coast once things open up a little bit more out there, and Los Angeles and California and other parts of the Midwest, Oregon and Washington, everything like that. So
Yeah.
I'll make it out there.
I'm from Oregon originally and lived in Washington, and I've lived in
Okay.
California. So, yeah, those are great places to do comedy.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends out there, both comedians and non-comedians, who are all all out there right now, and it seems like it's great. So I'm very excited to not only go out and see my friends, but to go do some comedy out there too.
Wonderful. I've got a couple really key questions to ask you. I'm going to go back in time again because I couldn't wait to ask you about your comedy club. Um, but back when you were going to school, growing up in Pittsburgh, and you had a year in Florida, but when you were basically growing up in Pittsburgh and you decided that you were funny, or people told you were funny, how did it work for you to be in Pittsburgh and start doing comedy later in life? Were there any key elements growing up where it was in the back of your what? Tell me about your life.
So I I was always overweight as a kid, so I always got picked on. But my main thought was, you guys can't say anything to me that's funnier than I can say about myself. So I've just always been that way about it, since I was like middle school aged and everything. And I started um, writing sketches and things like that while I was in middle school, and filming them and things like that. So I had a long time love of comedy. And in fact, I wrote my first set list whenever I was 16, like my first jokes. And I was going to try and get up the nerves to go do it at an open mic at a club that used to be here. But I looked at my jokes and I quickly thought, I'm like, who's going to listen to this fat 16-year-old talk about herself and all of her problems? Um, Turns out the answer would have been a lot of people. Uh, but I was just wrong. So I just kind of let that fear kind of exist for a good couple years, and then I was in college out here. I went to Robert Morris University, which is a school in Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, and I just kind of had it take the back burner. And then one night, a friend and I had been going and seeing a comedy open mic, and one night my friend just kept telling me, she's like, Amanda, you're funnier than any of those guys up there. Just do it. So a couple weeks after we'd like gone to like two of them, I told her, I was like, well, we can either go play trivia tonight, or if we go to the open mic, I'm going to try comedy for the first time. And she's like, well, we're doing that. So that's how it happened. 5 mojitos later, I was up there.
How did the very first time go?
uh, uh, I was so in love with doing comedy that after my first set, I talked to the host of the open mic, asked him where the comics go, because I'd always been a huge fan of comedy. I knew that, comic bars exist, like bars where comics go and hang out after the shows. Same with bands, same way with comedy. So I was like, hey, where does everybody go? And he told me, well, they all go down to Hambones, which wasn't Burning Bridges Comedy Club yet, but they were still running their open mic. So I walked down there and I loved it. I loved stand up so much. I went up twice my first night. That's how much I loved it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So I did
was
that.
that two different sets?
No, not two. Well, I mean, two different venues. The jokes were the same, because I knew that, like I said, I'd always been a fan of comedy. So I knew not only the, like, kind of like I knew what comics I liked, I knew stuff like that, but I also knew the mechanics of how certain things kind of worked. Like, you know, when people go up, they're rehearsing, and it doesn't have to be a new joke every time. They just have to get it, and they're going to trim it down till it's right. And like I knew those certain things, so I knew I was okay going up there telling the same jokes I'd told 2 hours earlier, because I had done my research and I knew that that's what people do.
Yes. And then like how has it been going doing comedy, and you improvise and coach? So I'd kind of like to know, how has it been going over the years that you've done comedy, and specifically how does improvising make you a stronger comic than you would be without it? Because I think people need to hear that.
So I, whenever I was in my teens, Whose Line Is It Anyway had just started playing on like Comedy Central and the British version of Whose Line. So was very into it. Me and my friends were very into Whose Line, very into Monty Python. So we watched it all the time. And uh I never thought I could do it. Like, to me, it was just like, that's just, it's too sporadic. It's too much off. I don't think I could do it. And then I took my first improv class. So I started stand up in August of 2014. And then in October, I took my first improv class, and I fell in love with it. I knew I could do it. I lucked out by having some really great teachers and coaches who had trained at, you know, all of the centers that you think of, like whatever you think of, improv and sketch comedy. They were at Second City, they were at UCB, they did all those things. So I was very lucky to have a lot of very great teachers who were supportive. And I think that something that's a huge thing that can be gleaned from doing both improv and stand up is, in stand up, you can't always stick directly to your script. Something will happen. You'll get the drunk audience member or the girls who, like, it's their bachelorette party or birthday, or you'll get the heckler kind of guy. And you have to think on your feet because you have to address it. You can't necessarily just push past everything. There becomes a certain point, like, you, in most cases, whenever you're on stage, you can push past certain things, but there's sometimes where you got to give that little bit of attention to something else, and then you progress on with what you're doing. And I think that improv can help with that. I also think that improv can help with just kind of expanding your mind and creating new scenarios that you didn't necessarily think could be there, especially when it comes to a joke or a punchline or a tag. Because whenever you play an improv, there's no boundary to it. and or at least there's no boundary to your creativity. There are certain boundaries with improv. People sometimes say that there are no rules to improv, and it's like there are pretty clear rules for certain things, so that way you can get the best experience and the best and most entertaining outcomes for people. But I think that those things kind of balance each other pretty well whenever it comes to using stand-up and improv together. So, yeah.
Super. Yeah, I see a lot of people that have been actors and then they come into comedy, and I feel like their comedy is too dependent on their acting. And I want more well-written jokes, you know what I mean? And but improvisers, I never
Yeah.
sit there and go, oh, that's an improviser. I don't want that. I always want more improvising. Does that make sense?
I think that yeah, and I think that it depends. I definitely feel like there's certain performers who do better with more like with more written material, and then people who can handle going off book.
Yes.
And the and like the difference can even be seen on like certain like Saturday Night Live, for example. Like there's a lot of performers who have who are on that show who've gone through Groundlings and UCB and Second City, and a lot of people who primarily come out of the improv and sketch fields. But then there's also people who come more from a stand-up background. Um, like the two people that I can think of off the top of my head are well, Michael Shea, Colin Jost, Chris Redd, the current cast members anyway, and Pete Davidson. All four of them primarily came out of stand-up. Even Leslie Jones primarily came out of stand-up, as opposed to sketch and improv, which Sherry O'Terry, Kate McKinnon, Julia Sweeney, Will Ferrell, like
Yes.
a ton of people, like a ton of people came more from that background. Not saying that they don't have experience in both, but
Right.
there's definitely people who you can kind of watch. Uh, and even like in your own theaters and stuff too, who has certain strengths with certain things. Like personally, no strength at all when it comes to musical improv or anything like that. I cannot sing. I am not good at making up songs on stage. I don't have that kind of confidence about myself. That's not where that lies for me. Um, so that for me is like a personal tough one, but I have friends who are phenomenal at it and can just instantly go off the cuff and create a song and do it out of nowhere with music, without music, doesn't matter. So we all have our strengths.
Yes. It's really fascinating when you break down the elements of comedy or acting or improv. It's intricate, you know? So
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, because this is a short interview, and I'd love to have you come back anytime you want to plug
Mhm.
anything you're doing, whether that's
Sure.
reopening your club, going and wanting people to come watch you at a festival. I'll have you back anytime. Today is a crunch day for me. But
Oh, that's
before I go, Amanda, tell me where people can catch you and how we can support you online.
so I can be supported online, and you can catch me on my website, amandaaverill.com. I'll be adding some of the upcoming show dates and things on there. Uh, Also on Facebook, facebook.com/Amanda Averell Comedy, on Instagram and Twitter at Amanda Averell. And my last name is spelled Averell, which is important because it's a weird last name, just is. Um, and then I don't have like a Patreon or anything right now, but I do use Buy Me a Coffee. So if anyone out there would like to support my caffeine addiction or my like bubbly water addiction that I have, to energize and fuel me while I write my comedy and book shows and stuff, I will gladly take it. So I'm also on Buy Me a Coffee. But yeah, follow me on all the social medias and the things. I have a TikTok, again, just my name, because my name is weird enough to have its own thing and nobody else will take it. That's a good thing, I guess.
Awesome. You've been a great guest. This is a short interview, and please come back. Let me know when I can plug you again.
Will do, Linda. I will reach out to you in the very near future for sure.
Cool. And I hope that your club reopens Burning Bridges in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me, Linda.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.